So today we're talking about the endosymbiotic theory, and then you do have an assignment today. Today you're just watching an Amoeba Sisters video and you're answering questions as you watch it. It's on Edpuzzle. How many of you are not familiar with Edpuzzle? I'm not hearing any complaints, so I guess that's a good thing. That means you've used Edpuzzle before. All right, so the endosymbiotic theory. Keep in mind that a theory is a well-established and highly reliable explanation. For example, the atomic theory says that everything is made of atoms. And the gravitational theory states that large bodies, like planets, the moon, the sun, those are large bodies. They exert forces on one another. That's why we rotate around the sun, and that's why the moon rotates around us. In 1967, an American biologist named Lynn proposed the endosymbiotic theory. This explains that eukaryotic cells got their membrane-bound organelles, specifically mitochondria and chloroplasts, from prokaryotic cells. So the cells in our body that make up animals came from bacteria. That's what this theory states. So again, the ancestors of our cells came from prokaryotic symbionts. So it came from bacteria cells that decided to live together. So this explains how a large host cell ingested a bacteria, and then they became dependent on one another for survival. So we have a larger bacteria eating smaller bacteria. And again, they started to depend on each other for survival, so it resulted in a permanent relationship. This took over millions of years of evolution. Mitochondria and chloroplasts have become more specialized, and today they cannot live outside of the cell. So we've talked about these organelles before. Remember, mitochondria gives the cell the energy. It's used by breathing, respiration, all of that good stuff. And then chloroplasts also give the cell energy. It takes energy from the sun, uses photosynthesis to make energy that the cell can actually use. So this is what the theory states. The young Earth was supported by many types of bacteria. We had large bacteria, we had oxygen-breathing bacteria, and we had sun energy bacteria. Most membrane-enclosed organelles, including the nucleus, ER, and Golgi, probably originated from deep folds in the plasma membrane. So what that says is all of the other organelles came from folds of the membrane surrounding the cell. The mitochondria and chloroplasts originated as bacteria that came inside to live inside larger cells. So all of the other parts to a cell came from the cell's membrane, except the mitochondria and the chloroplasts. Those came from other cells. So modern animal and plant cells contain many organelles that serve as compartments for different cellular activities. So again, this is just a cartoon image of what I was talking about. We have a large prokaryotic cell that engulfs two smaller prokaryotic cells. Then they start living together in symbiosis. They start helping each other out, and now they become one cell forever. So again, we have one large bacteria eating two smaller bacterias, and it doesn't digest it, it just keeps it inside of its belly, if you will. So we have evidence to support this. We didn't just think of this out of the blue. Chloroplasts and mitochondria both have inner and outer lipid bilayer membranes. So both of these organelles have their own sets of membranes that resulted from endocytosis, which is engulfing. Engulfing just means it surrounds it and brings it in. So I really love this movie. And this is my favorite. Oops. Well, let me tell you what it's about. It's my favorite scene of engulfing. It's from Scary Stories. Have y'all seen that movie? With that giant white blob. She takes in the guy that's running from the hallway and it just goes inside of her. That's engulfing. So the other evidence is that chloroplasts and mitochondria are both similar in size with prokaryotic bacteria cells. So the mitochondria and the chloroplast are a lot smaller than the animal and plant cells, but they're almost the same size as a bacteria cell. Another piece of evidence is that chloroplasts and mitochondria both have their own DNA. So they have their own DNA that's apart from the cell's nucleus. Again, they have their own set of DNA, and they also have their own ribosomes inside. Remember, ribosomes are important for creating protein, and these two organelles have their own ribosomes inside of them. The last piece of evidence is just like prokaryotic cells, chloroplasts and mitochondria can reproduce on their own. They use binary fission to make multiple copies of themselves. So they don't need the rest of the cell to help them make more of themselves. They can just copy their own DNA, split apart, and that's how they make more of their mitochondria and chloroplasts. So that's all I have to talk about the endosymbiotic theory. Again, it states that our cells, animals and plant cells, come from bacteria cells that ate other bacteria cells. If you have any questions about anything, stay on. If not, you are free to go.